Today's guest has spent the last decade studying something most businesses have overlooked: human connection. He's hosted more than 800 transformational dinners, worked with organizations like Google, Microsoft, IBM, written for Rolling Stone and CNBC, and built a Wall Street Journal best-selling career around one simple belief that in an ever-increasing AI-driven world, our greatest advantage won't be the technology itself. It will be our ability to make people feel seen, heard, and recognized. In today's conversation, we explore why optimization may be making us less human, why friction is often the foundation of meaningful relationships, how great leaders build belonging and culture, and why the future may not belong to the world's largest operators like influencers like Mr. Beast, Kim Kardashian, but to the best hosts. Chris Schembra, welcome to the Operator Podcast.
Oh, Ethan, what an honor to be here. I was once a young man like you, hungry to learn and hungry to bring wisdom to our world, and I just can't believe that you're doing it so well. And just keep sharing your gifts, and I'll be in your corner to support. So I'm glad to be here today.
Thank you very much for those kind words. I deeply appreciate it. So
Yeah.
let's get started then, Chris. You often say we've optimized for efficiency at the expense of our humanity. At what point does optimization start destroying the very thing we're trying to improve?
Great question. I want to start with a stat because I know your listeners, like stats. There's a great study that came out from a big HR company called Workday, and they came out with what was called it's right here, the Human Connection Workplace Index, and in it they found that of all the thousands of employees that they surveyed for this, 86% believe that AI has made them more efficient and productive. 43% of people say that AI has freed up time that could be spent on human connection, networking, cross-functional collaboration, and team strategy. But only 28% are actually using that newfound free time for human connection, networking, cross-functional collaboration, and team strategy. And so that vector, that 15-point gap between the opportunity at hand and what we actually do with that newfound time is something called Jevons paradox. Jevons paradox states that efficiency gains end up getting replaced by more of the same work. And so if you look at the world today, we have a lot of frictionless technology that's made our lives easier, more convenient, more efficient, and optimized. We can click a button to do something that used to take an hour. We can, instantly get the answer to something instead of figuring out how to get the answer ourselves through trial and error. And all these kind of different things, yes, save us more time, make us more efficient at doing the thing. But what ends up happening is we don't spend that newfound free time well. We use it inefficiently and just do more of the same things. And so the way I kind of say it is, if you get more efficient at answering emails, you just end up receiving more emails. If you get more efficient at taking meetings, you just end up taking more meetings. And what that's done, I believe, is given us a nation of high-performing, productive, efficient people that have accidentally kind of lost their souls along the process. We're connecting with others less. We're creating less space and time for ourselves in order to tap into our inner zone of genius where creativity and innovation comes from. And I think it impacts the way we view the world. We view the world through scarcity rather than abundance. We view it through envy and jealousy and fear instead of the overwhelming knowledge that like life is pretty good. And all of that happens when you outsource creative thinking and connection to an algorithm.
That's great. And there's a lot of things that you said. And one story that funny that you mentioned, like the specialization. And for context for the people who are listening today, when Chris and I just hopped on to the meeting, we were talking about health, wealth, and relationships, and I was kind of over-indexing on wealth, and then kind of putting health and relationships aside. But I kind of told him that kind of pushing it to what extent. Like, of course, wealth is the main priority, but health and relationships are not fully cut behind. I was speaking to someone on the airplane about this exact topic of I believe, and what he told me that he believes in is that the specialization has got us so focused and so great at that specific skill set that all the other things that makes us human have fallen away. So with technology creating these incentive loops for us, what do you think would be a few ways for that, let's say 15% of people who are just keep on doing it? How would you suggest for them to get out of that?
Great question. I think people don't, for all the listeners listening to this, I'm not wagging my finger at you right now. First of all, I'm guilty of this efficiency trap myself. I am constantly trying to outsource and optimize and automate and increase our impact and income. I am the person that I am the person that I'm trying to solve for. So I'm not wagging my finger at you. You're not doing anything wrong, on purpose, at least. People say we don't plan to fail. We fail to plan. And let's take time as an example. If whatever you're doing right now makes you more productive and efficient, it's likely also saving you time. And so to answer your question is, what can we do that with that newfound free time? I'm going to answer it with two different blocks of what we can do. Stuff for our own self and stuff with others. I imagine that most of you listening to this have really big goals and dreams of tomorrow. I know what my wealth portfolio wants to be 60 years from now, and I've reverse engineered my investment and sales habits to reach that goal. But the problem with thinking so far goal-oriented in the future is that we oftentimes measure the distance between where we are and where we want to be, and that creates anxiety. We oftentimes live in some void of future orientation, which is great. This is how goals get done. This is how momentum occurs. But what if, in one of those newfound blocks of time that efficiency gives you, what if we spent some of that time living in the present? What if we turned off the recorder? What if we stepped away from the screen? What if we went outside and just sat in a park with nothing to do? What happens when you do that is A, you regulate your emotion. B, you shift into a positive mental attitude. And C, you let the good thoughts catch up. See, right now, I would estimate that the more efficient, outsourced, and optimized we get at doing something, the less ability we have to actually tap into our inner zone of genius. See, right now, we're going through a little bit of a brain rot and a brain fry through AI. And it's actually atrophying our cognitive abilities to actually come up with original thought. Right? AI is a great mirror. And so right now we're just mirroring a bunch. And so what if we took a pause, we sat without technology for an hour, and we actually listened to what we're trying to say? See, the truth of the matter is the average human can speak 90 words a minute. The average human can hear 150 words a minute, but the average human can think 400 words a minute. And if you spend all of your time going fast, efficient, and optimized, where is the time to actually tap into that ocean of unsaid 400 thoughts? Most of us just regurgitate or program into AI the 90 words per minute that we're comfortable with. And so step one is just, I think, pause, create space on your calendar just to let the good, original, creative, genius thoughts catch up. Because right now, if we outsource too much of ourselves to technology, we're actually dumbing ourselves down into mediocrity. AI recycles all of our thoughts, and it doesn't elevate us to genius. It lowers down to the common denominator. And so excellence is truly about tapping into that ocean of unsaid thoughts within. And the second, kind of pillar of what we can do is just go meaningfully connect with others. Maybe it's to, skip the gym tomorrow morning because you went out to dinner tonight and you had a drink with a buddy and you slept in. Cool. It's a little unproductive, but fuck it. It's good for the heart. Human relationships are really meaningful because humans that believe in us give us confidence to bring to the world what we need to bring before we believe in ourselves. So I won't go too much deeper into relationships because I think we'll get there. But yeah, two simple things, I think.
That's interesting. For people, like the name of the podcast is called the Operator Podcast, and it's really a true reflection on how I think. I have a high likelihood of operationalizing things, putting things into frameworks. So one thing that I love, and I call it memory maxing. It's kind of what you outlined of where experiences that we do a lot of the work. Let's say we work 80% of our waking hours. Looking back, of course, you got to remember the outcomes, the results of work, but you maybe not remembering the work itself. And what I've found and come up with is how can we change it? What are things that I can cement in my memory looking back 70 years down the road? So for right now, I haven't done this ever before in a podcast, is to take this little Quacktastic award and put it right here. I never done that before. And now I solidified a memory. I know this is a very basic example, but it's something that I believe it goes back to like what we're optimizing for in the first place. To find how you're becoming too over optimized, what would be like the first sign that you're becoming overly too optimized?
First of all, what is the Quacktastic award that you just put on your desk? Tell us.
So the story is, I feel like a kid again, get my participation trophy, but I think this was from an award that I got at school of like, you won a soccer game and here's your award. I don't remember the exact memory. It was years ago, but I was from some participation involved event when it came to athletics.
So it's called the Quacktastic Award. If you had to pick something in your life to memory max on that's quacktastic, what's one thing you could do?
One thing I can do, or what is one thing I could reflect upon?
One thing you could do tomorrow to make it a quacktastic day that leaves a memory that imprints for the next 70 years.
My go-to thought, and this is the one I'm going to mention, is writing a letter to my parents and surprising them. It's going to be no AI generation. It's going to be raw thoughts. It's going to be messy. No, of course, some proofread, but it's going to be a paper about 1 page length of just my thoughts and like my relationship with them. And that's something I'll do today.
So a gratitude letter written in pen without the use of AI to your parents.
Correct.
Sounds quacktastic as fuck. And to quote the great Maya Angelou, people won't remember what you did or what you said, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. That feeling is going to last a lifetime, both for you, the giver of the gratitude, and them, the recipient of the gratitude, as well as us, the observers, the third-party observers of your giving gratitude. Sarah Algoe calls it witnessing theory from the University of North Carolina. That people who are witnessing Ethan be a grateful person to his parents are more willing to associate themselves with and help out you, the giver, and them, the recipients. That don't come through an algorithm. That's just good, hard living.
That's amazing. I have to master your energy. That's great. To more transition to how to create these meaningful conversations, these connections, you believe that friction, like adding variety, friction to your relationship, to your connection, is beneficial. What's an example of friction that everyone should add into their life or business since they're a leader?
Oh, that's a great question. So to define the two hemispheres, we live in a world that hero worships frictionless design of technology, right? The goal of technology is to remove friction, right? If you're watching this and you're thinking about the app that you're vibe coding right now, you're probably thinking, how do I get, a person from, landing on my site to clicking the checkout cart in less than 8 swipes or whatever it is. And then maybe it's less than 3 swipes. Like, you're removing friction from the buying process. Well, I think that frictionless design of technology is part of what's caused the atrophy of both our minds and our social muscles and our ability to see good in the world. And so what's the opposite? It's quite simple. Designed friction, right? Frictionless design, design friction. Let me give a couple examples. The frictionless thing to do for some people is to go out into the world and say things at people. It's what social media was born for. It's literally anybody can go and click a post and say things at people. Pretty frictionless. Requires a couple sentences and a click of a button. So what would be the opposite? The opposite would be to not talk at people, but instead sit with and listen to people without saying anything. In our world, one of the things that people teach in communication is the power of relatability. Relatability is awesome. Ethan, you talk about your grandparents, and I get to relate by saying, oh my God, I had grandparents too. Hey, well, we're relating. This is great. The frictionless thing to do would to be in a conversation with people in which you relate to them, but then steal the show and talk the whole time. The frictionful thing to do would be to hear something that someone says and then just pausing and continuing to listen and then asking good open-ended follow-up what or how questions and not relating back. These are example tiny little frictions. I'll give you a thing from our story. So about 11 years ago, I invented a bowl of pasta sauce. Boom. And I decided to feed it to people to see if it was even good or not. And so I hosted a dinner party. July 15th, 2015, I invited 15 of my friends that didn't know each other over to my home for a simple bowl of pasta sauce. The frictionless thing to do would have been to host a dinner where they didn't have to do jack shit and they just showed up and got fed. But
You added something into the mix?
We all know that's not what I did. What I did at 7:47 p.m. was I put the pasta in the pot, and then I delegated 11 specific tasks, empowering the attendees to work together to create the meal. So now you had a bunch of strangers who didn't know each other 5 minutes ago, now working together for each other's greater good. It lowered the ego. It created a posture of otherness, and people stepped into service. So by the time we got down to dinner and asked a deep question and drank some great wine, they'd earned the opportunity to sit around the dinner table. And that is an example of friction.
For me, since I'm part of the generation Gen Z, and I was speaking to a person a couple months ago, he's probably in his 70s and 80s, highly successful businessman, and he talked about one thing when it comes to relationships. The one thing was that people are so comfortable with picking up the phone, texting someone, compared to meeting them in person or talking to them over the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think we've become so uncomfortable with meaningful conversations over the phone or in person?
Well, so there's an interesting stat that came out in that Workday Workplace Human Connection Index report is that more people prefer, I think it's 37% or 33%. I don't know the exact number and I don't want to open up the stat, the report, but more people go to AI to have conversations with than each other because AI doesn't have they don't have a fear of judgment with AI, and AI is patient with them. And so let's just take those two things. By the way, in the study of all employees surveyed, 60% give consistent gratitude to AI, whereas only 56% of people surveyed give consistent gratitude to humans. We're thanking AI over humans now. But anyways, I think that people don't have meaningful conversations with each other because we're not patient with each other anymore. We live really fast-paced lives now. We just happen to speed up. And so patience between people is a rare commodity. I don't think that many people have the emotion regulation skills needed to have a conversation with someone who disagrees with them anymore. Now, we can get into the causes of that, but if someone disagrees with you in the olden days, it wouldn't fuck up your day. It wouldn't blow up your shit. Now it does. I think people don't have meaningful conversations with others because they've lost the confidence in just asking a question and then shutting up and listening. Because we've all been convinced through social media that we could all and do deserve to have a voice. But if everybody deserves to have a voice, who deserves to have a listening ear? That's what I ask.
And the other upcoming thing of what you mentioned is like from what I've heard is like the loneliness epidemic of people are attaching themselves to this and not attaching themselves to other people.
Well, it's so in 1973, Mark Granovetter from Stanford University put out a study called The Strength of Weak Ties, which advocated that vital information is best passed through a social network through a series of weak or distant ties. If you wanted a job or career growth or creativity or innovation, you didn't it's harder to go to people that you're close to ask for a new job or career advice or innovation. It's easier to go to someone who's a loose tie because there's less pressure on the relationship. It's harder to go to a brother when you're jobless and say, "Hey bro, I'm jobless, help me out." They're like, "Whoa, bro. Whoa, that's a little over my pay grade. Good luck. I love you." But it's easier to go to some neighbor's backyard barbecue and run into their dog walker who's got a third cousin who's hiring in landscaping. And you're like, "Oh, do you mind connecting us?" And they're like, "Actually, sure. Why not?" Less pressure on the relationship. And so for 60 years, 50 years, we've hero worshiped, surrounding ourselves with loose ties. An example of a loose tie is a second degree connection on LinkedIn, a follower instead of a friend, a loose acquaintance, a coach, consultant, or third-party weak tie that's brought in to help mediate a conversation. We have seen the rise of all of these things, statistically speaking, in a study of how over 20 million people found jobs on LinkedIn in the last few years. It's like 90-something% were found through second-degree connections. So we have hero worshipped meeting new people, second-degree connections, and followers. And I think what that's done is it's atrophied our ability to be vulnerable and to challenge those that we truly care about, right? We go to therapy instead of talking to a friend because there's less pressure. How convenient that when you're trying to get through some kind of a hard thing, you just go to a therapist that you can easily just cancel on, right? And so I think that we've unfortunately hit a tipping point because the average human being has 553 Facebook friends, but nobody to call at 3 a.m. And so all of that stuff has messed us up. So now you're starting to see the pendulum swing the other way of saying, let's start taking care of the people that we're closest to and actually having the hard conversations with them and not running away from avoidance.
Two things, and one primary example of what you just said was I saw this video a couple hours ago, and it was this person who had 60,000 followers on Instagram, and he hosted an in-person meetup. No one showed up.
Yep. Come
No
on,
one.
folks. Come on, folks. Well, first of all, TikTok has completely changed the game where followers don't matter anymore because statistically your For You page, which most of us live on for better or for worse, is feeding you videos that you aren't necessarily from the people you follow.
Mhm. Very discoverability based.
Yes, discoverability, interest based. They know that I like antique restoration, and so they send me antique restoration videos. They know I love Zara Larson's Midnight Sun and Lush Life, so they send me Zara Larson videos and Lainey Wilson videos and yacht videos and
Ferrari videos.
not so much. Yeah, maybe a little Ferrari. Definitely F1 videos and Lego. I'm on Lego Talk. But so, anyways, it used to be that Instagram allowed you to see content from your friends, or Facebook allowed you to see content from your friends. Instagram allowed you to see content from your followers. And now TikTok has even made followers useless because it sends you stuff based on discoverability and the kind of things that you like. And so followers don't even mean jack shit anymore. Do you know how many authors have written those books up on my shelves? Or how many books that are on my shelves behind me are written by authors that are friends of mine who I can point to a book of someone who wrote a book who has a lot of followers and they sold 100 copies. Come on, folks. Come on. Like the bubble is bursting, folks. The bubble is literally bursting. It doesn't take that many people to surround yourself with to live a pretty great life. You know, Kevin Kelly, one of the original co-founders of Wired magazine, and sits on the School of Life, on the board of the School of Life, etc. He, one of the first articles I ever read from Kevin Kelly 12 years ago was called "The Law of 1,000 True Fans." And he argued that any artist, entrepreneur, or creative type can make one heck of a good living with just 1,000 true fans. You sell $100 product to 1,000 people. That's a six-figure income right there, folks. Not so bad. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a fan of the 1,000 instead of the 100,000. I mean, look, you know, at our company, you know, Jack and Norson and Imran and Jennifer, we don't need more than, let's call it, 40 yeses per year to have a damn good year. Right? So this myth that like you need followers to get the riches, it's just, I don't know. I think the world's changing their opinion on that.
I know you mentioned like everyone is wrestling with like you said, you haven't figured it out yourself. Same here for me. One thing that I've wrestled with when it comes to the marketing side, like I've done millions of views online, but I've also kind of wrestled with, am I feeding into this thing that we don't want to happen? And then it just boils down into, is this piece of content adding value to someone's life or not? Whether
Mm-hmm.
it's like a laugh, which of course, when you think of it as more of a brain rot type of content, or value like this. So this is why I've like positioned myself away from short form to be more long form fed. So you mentioned one way to create meaningful conversations is to introduce some challenge. So I have some challenge for you. What would have to be true today for your belief that human connection is the ultimate competitive advantage to be wrong?
Wait, say that again. What would need to be true?
What would have to be true for your belief that human connection is the ultimate competitive advantage to be wrong?
Oh, oh, Uh, you'd have to show me the proof of a person or an organization that had the most transactional, least relationship oriented sales process to be, valued at $1 billion, and the founder actually be a fulfilled, healthy individual that, doesn't want to just completely hurt himself. I don't know. You'd have to show me some wild ass stat or like case study. I don't know. So the idea of what would have to be true in order to prove my theory wrong, you'd have to, okay, you'd have to disprove a tremendous amount of studies, including the largest or the longest longitudinal study on human well-being in history, the 75-year study on adult development done by Harvard University by Robert Waldinger, or he's been the executive director at least for the last 20 something years, that found that relationships are the greatest predictor of health and longevity in human history, and nothing else truly lives up as much as relationships. You'd have to disprove the World Happiness Report study in 2025 that showed that the difference between eating alone for life satisfaction and well-being, the difference between that, eating every meal alone every week, and then eating a few meals per week with people has a greater impact on life well-being than income level and unemployment. You'd have to disprove a tremendous amount of studies that are on our side.
And that's why our side, the focusing on those relationships, will remain fundamental truth for the rest of humanity, unless, of course, some massive piece of evidence has changed our perspective.
We owe our country to relationships. I mean, you can go back to April 18th, 1776, when two men went out from Boston with the war that the British were coming. Paul Revere went one way, and a guy that nobody really knows about, William Dawes, went the other way. Very long story short, nobody knows about William Dawes because he did relationships wrong. He was a successful dude, but he did relationships wrong. Nobody knows about him. Everybody remembers Paul Revere because before the war began, he invested in the relationships before he needed them. And yeah, he saved a country, and he went down in history, and he achieved excellence, and he gained the competitive edge, and he did his damn thing. We owe our country to a good relationship strategy instead of William Dawes's bad relationship strategy. For sure.
One of the ways for you to have a great relationship is be authentic. I know we've talked a lot about authenticity indirectly, but what is your definition of being authentic?
Oh, man. I think when you slow down long enough, right? Put Claude Code away for just a sec, folks. You know, Claude bot you can get back to, and go walk outside and go sit somewhere alone and just stare at nature or something. I don't know. Try not to make it man-made, and just listen to the truth that your inner soul is trying to say. If it's trying to say, go take a run, go take a run. If it's trying to say, put on that dress, put on the dress. If it's trying to say, go call your mom, go call your mom. The more you start doing those things, when your body and your soul tell it, the more authentic you will live. And I know that that's a circular definition because I use the word authentic to actually answer your question of how do you define authenticity. I say it's acting in integrity to your soul's purpose, to what you're meant to bring to this world, because we're all put on this planet for a reason. And maybe it's to help people, connect over, the dinner table while you're wearing a fanny pack. Well, that's being authentic. I'm authentic because I like to wear a fanny pack. I think that in the era of social media algorithms, in the era of stealing content ideas from each other based on what's trending, I think that's a little too performative. And we end up wearing all these masks that hide ourselves from actually like just showing up to the world we want to show up for. And here's the thing about authenticity. You being authentic may piss off a percentage of people. The wrong people won't want to hang out with you. The right people will double down deeper on investing in you.
I found that, and to put a pin in point of what you said earlier, of going outside, texting your mom like I love you or thank you so much for all the work you've done for me, etc. I found that a lot of people who are very similar to me who are watching this have a hesitation gap between the thought and the action when it comes to these types of actions. And I've struggled with this myself because like the conversation that I'm having with you right now tends to make me somehow go into the overthinking category of where I overanalyze, operationalize everything compared just to taking the action that is necessary. So what would you say to people who hesitate before they act of like, is this a good opportunity or not? And then most high level people, high level operators go into themselves of like, how is this going to benefit my professional career? What would you say to these people?
I'm the wrong person to talk to about that because I truly believe that the amazing professional career I have is because I never hesitated to bring to the world who I am in the moment. And I did not think, how will this affect? Now, of course, keep in mind, I am blessed that I believe in the right things. And so whatever I'm going to bring to the world is likely going to be positive and has integrity, and it's likely going to be kind and nice. But I'm the wrong guy to ask because I just kind of go for it. I think Jack and I have been on enough calls together, and he's seen that I lead with a certain type of authenticity in every single call. Heck, I even begin calls by saying, this may be the wackiest and weirdest call of your day with whoever we're talking to. And you may hate me by the end of this, but I have no choice but to just be me. And if you hate that, fine, we don't have to talk again. But if you love that, damn, we're going to do some great work together. And Jack's seen me do that enough to realize, you know what? Did it accidentally piss off the CIO of a $100 billion company that wanted our services? Yep. But did it take a group of people who we just wanted to give some stuff to in the short term? And the minute that they felt that authenticity in the call, they said, we don't want you to give in just the short term. We want to retain you for 12 to 14 months. We want you for the long term. This is it. So I'm the wrong person to ask about that because I've lived that way. See, authenticity to me, I think in the world of people who think about how this is going to impact their professional opportunities, we strategically try to surround ourselves with people that we can take from, that can, fulfill our professional careers. And for those that we can't take from, we don't spend time with them. That's like, we can accidentally go down that route. Well, I like to do the opposite. I like to spend my time around people that allow me to give to them And those that do not accept my gifts, I don't like to hang out with. So giving is the thing. Look, Adam Grant proved it in his book, Give and Take. The most successful people on this planet are givers. We don't think about the professional opportunity. We give with an authentic heart. And the rest take care. You got to have a belief in the world that the world is good and it will take care of you if you stick to those premises.
That's amazing. And that's the reason why you are where you're at today. And for context for the people listening, Chris has mentioned Jack a few times. Jack Wagner are mutuals of both of us. Jack works with Chris, and Jack Wagner was a previous guest on the Operator podcast. I asked Jack this question, and it's the last question, and it's the last question I'm going to ask you, Chris. What is one question that you wish someone would ask you but never has?
What can I do to create space for you to surrender enough to tap into your ocean of unsaid thoughts?
And what's your answer to that?
Well, if someone's listening to this, well, I guess to anybody who would, ask me this, I would say to them to figure out a way to block hours off on my calendar and take me to a place devoid of technology and use them or multiple people to get me so present and surrendered and egoless, using their probing questions and other mechanisms to allow me to look within my own soul to find my hidden genius. So if that's you watching, give me a call.
Shameless plug.
No, here's the thing. Here's the thing. For the people who want to go on an adventure in life, for the people who want to experiment, right? My answer to that question was both vague, provocative, curious, and left room for experimentation and adventure, for mischief. And I believe that's what the world wants. It does. Right now, we have a bunch of homes that are painted in black and white. We have a bunch of cars that are either black, white, or silver. We've lost color and provocativeness and mischief in this world. And you want the competitive advantage of tomorrow? You find that provocateur within, you bring it to light, and you live an authentic life around that. That's how you win tomorrow. But you got to create space for that. You got to. You got to pause every now and then. You got to put down the technology, and you got to create that space with others to find that within.
That has been the Operator Podcast. The guest, Chris Schembra. Appreciate your time, man.
Thank you for having me, Ethan.